Hey everyone, welcome back to this week's edition of the Maconi Setup Shop A-Fix Tutorials. Today we are at what I call my home track of Michigan International Speedway. Seen a number of races here over the years, including Dale Jr.'s 2012 victory, which was really special to be a part of, and I'm looking forward to trying to help you learn a thing or two to help you get around one of my favorite racetracks on the service. First things first, this race is going to be fifth gear no matter what. If you're qualifying or find yourself out of the draft, uh, it is going to be a fifth gear all the way. Fourth gear is just not even an option. It's just too tall and serves no purpose. So fifth gear all the way. Another big thing to touch on is dirty air. Now, you guys watching this video, obviously I'm doing this solo car. The difference between being in the draft and solo car here is tremendous. The dirty air is incredible. If you're following directly behind somebody, you're going to be very tight. So you're going to see a lot of people trying to move around and not be in somebody's wake, which is going to give you options. As you'll see, I'm going to do a lap on the very bottom and in the third lane just to demonstrate. In my opinion, I think the bottom you're going to see used quite a bit. I think most of the racing you'll see will be in the very first two lanes. It is important to note that the very bottom groove here has less banking than the rest of the racetrack, which is really unique and adds a lot of character to this place. With that being said, you have to be careful because with that less banking, you're going to find that you could get loose when you transition. So if you're trying to run the second lane and you cross that seam, now you're on a flatter part of the racetrack. Uh, you could feel like you're getting loose. If you're on the very bottom, I feel like entry to center, you're going to feel very comfortable. But as you're transitioning up off the corner, it could try to step out on you depending on how you hit the transition. It's so hard to say. Uh, but just keep in mind that as you're crossing the transition, that's when the car is going to try to unload a little bit. So just be ready for that. There's enough grip down there. The car produces enough grip that you should be okay. Just want to fair warn you that that is the possibility of what could happen. Talking about lines, Michigan is a very line-sensitive racetrack. So going into turn one, this lap I'm going to run the bottom for you. Uh, Very weird analogy to drop on you guys. Turn one in Michigan, I often refer to it as falling into the corner. Now, as we come around, I'll explain why. Turn three, you're trying to just follow the seam. As you can see going into the corner, the way the seam kind of transitions with the racetrack, you kind of want to follow that in. That should be your guide to turn into the corner. But for turn one here, I know it's a weird analogy, but as you're following this wall, okay, again, we've always raced trying to go to the seam down here. We've never really raced below it before. But as you turn off the wall, you're trying to get the car down to that line as smooth as possible. And the way I learned how to do it back in the day was more or less just falling into the corner. So you go off into the corner, you're turning the wheel, and you're just letting the car drive itself down to that line. Another big thing is I find at Michigan you want to exit as low as possible for two reasons. One, you obviously don't want to be in somebody else's dirty air, okay, because that's going to make you really tight. Two, I find that it helps save the tires because you're using a lot less wheel to keep it down there. The car will follow the banking, and when you just let the car drive all the way up to the wall, you're more or less sliding the front tires as you're coming up. A lot of people think you're just doing what you normally do, letting the car come all the way out to the wall, when in reality, you're sliding the front tires doing that. So by trying to keep the car turned down, you don't build as much heat coming up off the banking. So there's two good things to do when you try to keep it that low. And I'll show you the seam down here that I'm talking about as we go through turn two this time. Again, trying to just let the car fall into the corner. And as we come up, you'll see this seam right here. See how it transitions? I always try to aim for that. That's like my aiming point when I try to get around here. And again, you could carry a lot of momentum, it also opens the door. If somebody's sliding up the racetrack, it opens the door for you to get inside their left rear, and now you have position on them going into the next corner. Okay, another thing to touch on real quick, if you notice my throttle inputs, if you haven't been paying attention to this point, I'd suggest going back to rewatch the video, but you should notice my throttle inputs going into the corners. I am lifting before I get to the corners, and you'll see that I'm gradually lifting, and the reason for that is I'm trying to keep the weight transition as smooth as possible. You don't want to jump out of the gas here because of how it affects the load of the race car. If you're overdriving the corner and you just jump out of the gas, it's not going to want to turn, so it's important to be smooth. This last lap here, we'll switch to the in-car so you guys get a much better perspective from inside the seat. Okay, everyone, that'll be a wrap for this week's video. If you have any questions, please leave a comment down below and we will get back to them as soon as we can. If you find that this video was helpful, please consider leaving a like, and if you're not already subscribed, be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. That way you can be the first one to see these videos every Monday once they're posted. Okay, best of luck this week, and we'll see you out on the racetrack.